Every person, every guy I bring into my training camp, I treat him with respect. I look after him like they're one of my own family.
Not only is it an amazing occasion, Frank, but all the elements seem to me to be ready in this one.
Tyson, you know, comes to fight, you know, Dillian does. And you know Dillian's style, he comes forward, he walks on, and you've seen Tyson in his last few fights, and his last two against Wilder, where it was toe-to-toe. So what do you think you're going to get?
Talked about a lot, didn't he? He won't fight this, he won't fight that. Who's a coward now, coward? Who's a shithouse now? You useless.
The veteran versus the hot up-and-comer who will win 10 rounds in the heavyweight division live on the zone from one of the leaders of sports and entertainment.
When Tyson Fury showed up at the press conference and stood shoulder to shoulder with the young powerhouse Moses Itauma, it wasn't just a friendly appearance. It was a calculated move, part support, part intimidation, and all mind games. Fury didn't need to say much. His presence alone turned the spotlight bright.
I think he's one of the best of all time. I really do. I think he's one of the best heavyweights of all time. And his movement is so different. One of the things that was interesting, where they were talking about the fight, and AJ Tony Bellows was talking about when he fought him, and AJ was saying that when he fought him, it was the most exhausted he's ever been, because he's always moving. There's no rest with him.
No rest.
Fighter on Dillian Whyte and shifted the energy of the room. In boxing, the psychological battle begins long before the first bell rings, and Fury's looming figure served as a silent reminder that Moses wasn't coming into this fight alone. For Whyte, the message was clear. Not only are you fighting a hungry 20-year-old, with frightening speed and power, you're also stepping into an arena where the biggest heavyweight in the world is publicly backing him. It adds a layer of pressure no words can capture. But Dillian Whyte is no stranger to psychological warfare. He spent years trying to unsettle opponents in pressers and stare downs. And this time, he wasn't about to let Fury or...
Yeah, it's got to go to the deep waters. You know, man, unless somebody slips up and get caught early. But, you know, we got to get him into the deep waters. That's the key.
Moses dictate the tone. Instead of playing defensive, he fired back. At the presser, Whyte mocked Moses, calling him nervous, before turning his verbal fire toward Fury. With a cheeky grin, Whyte went as far as threatening to batter the whole team. It was classic Whyte, bravado layered over...
I don't think Moses needs to catch anybody at a certain point in their career or anything like that.
Why's that?
Because I think he's good enough. I think he's plenty good enough. I think he's a generational talent, and I think it's going to take time for everybody to see that. But I think everybody can see that he has the potential.
For vulnerability. On the surface, it looked like a man shrugging off the mind games, but if you looked closer, you could sense the cracks. Fury's looming presence and Moses' unwavering confidence were already starting to chip away at him. Then came the breakdown from respected trainer Buddy McGirt.
Close and compact. Yeah, but if you ask them, let's do like 5 punches, better be if every punch will be hard. With Canelo, maybe first hard and then not. Both of them are strong, but better beef is bigger and...
Who has seen everything this sport has to offer. McGirt stripped away the noise and hype, reducing the fight to one simple truth: drag Whyte into deep waters. His advice was clear: make Whyte work every second of every round, test the stamina, drown the engine. McGirt wasn't insulting Whyte, he was exposing the blueprint. The 36-year-old heavyweight has carried power and menace his whole career, but stamina has never been his strongest suit. If Moses controls the pace, forces Whyte Whyte into exchanges he doesn't want and stretches the fight into later rounds. The veteran's experience may not be enough to
get young and strong. We're going to see if he can beat Dillian Whyte, though. Dillian Whyte ain't no pushover. And I think Dillian going to know that, you know what I'm saying? We're going to find out if he can really crack like they say he is. But I'm hearing things that he's been dropped in the ring, in the gym and stuff like that. But that's okay, too, because I took a couple spills, you know, little slips in the ring and the gym. That's okay, but we're going to see.
Carry him through. For McGirt, the path to victory was all about patience and pressure. Ben Davison, one of the sharpest young minds in British boxing, didn't mince his words either. He labeled Moses Itauma a generational talent. No caveats, no hedging, no if he keeps progressing. In Davison's eyes, Itauma is already operating on a different level. That kind of praise rattles a veteran like Whyte. Fighters who've spent their lives climbing, clawing, and surviving in the sport don't like to hear that their opponent isn't a prospect. They're already a finished article. Leave it to Derek Chisora to bring the chaos into the conversation. True to form, Chisora's verdict was blunt. Moses is a young lion with everything to prove, and Saturday is his chance to roar. He even dropped one of his trademark lines.
I think if they keep winning, yeah. I mean, look. Moses is an exceptional talent. You know, he's been in the game a long time. He's got a very, you know, long-standing amateur record and pedigree.
Suggesting the fight was so raw and personal that somebody's going to jail. That's Chisora in a nutshell. Wild words masking a core truth. He knows this fight is set up to explode. The youth, the hunger, the emotions, it all has the makings of a volatile, unforgettable night. Shannon, let's go, champ. Briggs brought the veteran's respect into the mix. He acknowledged Moses' youth, strength, and danger, but he also reminded everyone that Whyte isn't the type to fold easily. Briggs hinted at the unspoken challenge. Can Moses deliver under the bright lights against a man who has stood toe-to-toe with world champions and endured wars most fighters wouldn't survive? Briggs knows hype.
You know, it's going to be a hard fight. You got a young, hungry guy. You got the guy who's a little bit older, a little bit more wise, a little bit more mature, and they think they're catching Dillian at the right time.
Doesn't win fights. Reality does. He pointed out that the real test won't be the first few bombs Moses lands. It'll be what happens when Whyte is still standing after them. That's when talent meets toughness. That's when reputations are either made or broken. Promoter Eddie Hearn then added his perspective, always thinking 2 steps ahead. Hearn doesn't hand out high praise lightly, but with Moses, he spoke with conviction. He pointed to the long amateur pedigree, not as filler, but as a reminder that Itauma has been groomed for these moments from a young age. For Hearn, this fight isn't just about Saturday night, it's about the bigger picture. A win catapults Moses into stardom, skyrockets his stock, and sets up future blockbuster fights.
The difference of 20 pounds, and you're in there with a guy who's been the rounds, who's experienced it all, fought Fury, fought Joshua, fought Chisora, and you're just like with Moses, he's just, not that he's a couple of years a pro now, and he's never been at this level, never fought at this level. But in saying that, he hasn't looked like he's ever going to, stumble on a hurdle yet. It could, it's probably a great piece of matchmaking on behalf of Queensbury that this is the right step up at the right time for Moses to put himself amongst those top 10 heavyweights in the world. But it could also be a mistake. If it goes, I think, my opinion, if it gets past the 4th round, then it's a real fight. Then you'll see what Moses is made of, and you'll see how much Dillian has left.
Fights. A loss, meanwhile, doesn't end his career, but it does serve as the first measuring stick of how far he has to climb. Hearn made it clear Moses isn't a flash in the pan, he's an investment, and this fight is one of the key steps in cashing it in. Dean Whyte, Dillian's brother, framed the fight as a generational clash, youth versus experience. He reminded everyone that just because a fighter is young and hungry, it doesn't mean victory is automatic. Boxing is littered with stories where the old lion had just enough left to punish the young cub. Dean's warning was sharp. Timing cuts both ways. Catching Whyte at the right time might sound like the perfect strategy, but what if Moses can't impose himself early? What if the fight drags into a grinding mental war? This isn't just power against power, it's also about ring IQ, and Whyte's seen it all before. Former middleweight champion Andy Lee added his trademark
to almost see the old school Dillian Whyte who, wasn't afraid of anyone, would put it on anyone, because Moses is still only 20. And I almost feel like if Dillian needs a path to victory, it might start from outside the ring first, and then we'll see. Because there would have been a time when Moses has grown up and he's watching Dillian Whyte. He's watching him throw tables and throw things and charge.
Balance. He called this fight the right step up for Moses. Not a soft touch, not an overmatch, just the right test at the right time. Lee highlighted one key detail. If the fight goes past 4 rounds, things get interesting. In those later rounds, it's not just talent that matters. It's stamina, composure, and heart. Lee reminded everyone that Whyte has grit in abundance. If Moses falters, the older man could flip the script. Still, Lee also pointed out the opportunity at hand. A win here vaults Itauma into the world's top 10. It's not just a fight, it's a career-defining moment. Broadcaster Ade Oladipo painted the picture of what it would take for Whyte to win. He reminisced about the old Dillian Whyte. The fear.
I think I make Itauma the favourite just because Dillian Whyte hasn't boxing forever. Dillian Whyte's not been active, Itauma has, so I make Itauma the favourite based on that. But Dillian Whyte is experienced, he can punch. No result would surprise me, but I would go with an Itauma.
Fearless brawler who flipped tables at pressers and intimidated opponents before stepping into the ring. That version of Whyte was as dangerous outside the ropes as he was inside. Ade's point was clear. Whyte can't out-youth Moses. He has to win the mental battle, drag Itauma into chaos, and force him out of his rhythm. For Moses, this is the test. Can he shrug off the antics, ignore the mind games, and prove mental toughness belongs in his armory? Ade framed it perfectly. This isn't just fists versus fists. It's psychology versus psychology. Dave Allen, the fan-favorite heavyweight, took a pragmatic stance. He leaned toward Moses, pointing to Whyte's long spells of inactivity as a major factor. Ring rust is real, Allen warned. Still, he wasn't blind to the unpredictability of boxing. His verdict, no result would surprise.
It's a very difficult fight for him. It's a very difficult fight for him. He can't afford to bite on Itauma's triggers and feints. He's got to land something early to get some respect off of Moses as well. And it's called the body snatcher. I think he's got to dig that body. He's got to try and take away the sharpness from Itauma by investing.
Surprise him. That's the voice of experience. One punch, one bad round, one mistake. Boxing changes in a heartbeat. For Moses, being the favorite brings as much pressure as opportunity. Allen's words were part boost, part warning. You've got the tools to win, but you still have to execute. Finally, Dave Coldwell broke it down with surgical precision. Against a sharp, explosive fighter like Moses, Whyte's biggest mistake would be reacting to every feint and setup. Coldwell urged Whyte to establish authority early, land something meaningful, make Moses hesitate. He pointed to body shots as the great equalizer, punches that slow even the fastest fighters and take the spring out of their legs. But Coldwell was realistic. To land those shots, Whyte has to get close, and getting close means risking Itauma's blistering counters. Coldwell's roadmap was clear: be brave, be efficient, and don't waste energy. But whether Whyte has enough left in the tank to execute, it remains the million-pound question. This fight isn't just another date on the boxing calendar, it's a collision of eras. For Moses Itauma, it's the gateway to the elite. A chance to prove he's more than hype and stake his claim among the world's top heavyweights. For Dillian Whyte, it's a fight for pride, relevance, and redemption. Win and he silences doubters and proves there's still bite in the old lion. Lose and the decline becomes undeniable. Mentally, both men are playing their roles. Fury's backing fuels Moses's confidence, while Dillian's defiance is his armor. Physically, it's youth's relentless pace against veteran grit. If Moses wins, the hype train becomes a championship track. If Whyte shocks the world, he rewrites the narrative and breathes new life into his career. Either way, this is high-stakes, high-tension boxing, where one mistake, one punch, can swing the night. So the question remains, who owns this moment? Will Moses rise and roar into the spotlight? Or will Whyte ruin the script and remind the world that the old lion still has teeth?